Welcome to the Heartland Cycling Network. Tonight, there's no guest, but what we're going to be talking about is bike security. Chances are you have a lock of some sort, okay? How secure is that? Well, this is what we want to talk about. When it comes to bike security, if you're talking about an amateur thief, a lock can really deter that particular person. But when it comes to a pro, nothing's going to really work. I mean, if they want your bike, they're going to end up stealing it. Okay, there are three things that a thief needs, okay? And this I actually got from one of the lock companies. But basically, it's time. They need time to defeat your lock or your security, what you put in place. They need the opportunity. What opportunities are they going to be presented? You know, where you leave your bike. If you're just running into the coffee shop or a grocery store, just you take and have it on your bike rack on your car, and you stop for a quick sandwich at a fast food place. You know, there's all these different things that, you know, whatever the opportunity is. And then visibility, okay? Day, night, how many people are around? Is it a crowd, no crowd? Basically, if they're visible and trying to steal your bike, that's something that they probably don't want to do. So those are the three things that you want to try and minimize, okay? And I would say minimize all of them, all right? Just recently, I was on a trip, and it required an overnight stay at a motel. And the motel operator said, hey, we've got lights in the parking lot, and we got cameras. You can leave your bike on your rack. No way, I'm sorry. The bike that I actually took, which was this bike here, would cost me over $5,000 to replace. I'm not going to leave that out on my car unattended overnight. That's just foolishness. There are actually cases, in fact, there was a recent case just recently that somebody was traveling through the Omaha area and left his bike on his bike rack overnight at a motel, and of course it got stolen. And it doesn't mean that it's, you know, it could be a $5,000 bike, could be a couple $100 bike. It's just that it was the opportunity that this particular thief had to take and actually steal this person's bike. So what are you looking for when it comes to getting a lock, okay? Well, sometimes it's visibility of the lock, sometimes it's the hardness of the lock, there's security ratings on a lock. So I really encourage you to look for those particular things. Here, for example, is a lock that I bought years ago, and it's a disc lock. This actually goes and locks on a disc brake, okay, which is kind of nice. It's a quick thing. It's probably great for a coffee shop. It would deter an amateur because they couldn't ride off with it because you're putting it on your disc brake. Well, on the bike that I have here at this show today, there are no disc brakes, so that really wouldn't work. But anyhow, it comes with this steel cable cord, okay, that you'd lock in the lock itself and wrap around a pole or a bike rack or something, okay? Quite frankly, any wire cutter could probably take and cut this in half, and they'd be off with it. They could lift up your bike and take off with it. So, and then they could work on the lock separately. But actually, on disc brakes, it's very easy. You remove the wheel, you take out the 6 bolts, you throw the disc away, and you buy a new one. That's how simple it would be. Okay. Other locks, this one here is a cable lock, and it's a keyed lock. There are some that are like this that could be combination locks. My wife has one like that. And it's good for just the simple things, but even as thick as this steel cable is, it's easily defeated with a bolt cutter. In fact, I was working for a volunteer organization last fall, and there was a bike that came in with one of these locks that was donated. Well, we had a cable cutter. Boom, 2 seconds later, it was gone. Got it off. Another type of lock, this is a link lock. So it basically has a number of links to take and wrap around your bike, and it can hold your wheel against your frame, and it's kind of a nice little lock, but quite frankly, It's also fairly easily defeatable, even though this is from Abus. It's actually a Trek Bontrager lock. Trek actually sells Abus locks, and Abus is one of the strongest lock manufacturers that are out there. And anyhow, an angle cutter probably take 10-15 minutes and this lock would be defeated, okay? But still, it can deter those amateurs, but not necessarily a pro that really wants to get your bike. The strongest locks that are out there are U-locks. This baby here, again, this is a Trek branded Bontrager lock. It's from Abus again. It's a German lock company. And this thing here would take several cuts on the U in order to get it off of the bike. And each cut would probably take 15 minutes. So you're looking at a half hour, because once they cut it once, they aren't going to be able to take and separate it or pull it out, twist it out from the base here to take and actually get the lock out. And what I did recently on a camping trip where I had two bikes, I had my wife's and my bike, we used two of these. I've got two of these, and what I did is I chained it together with this. Again, this is an Abus chain, and it's very heavy. And anything that's going to be there that's going to help try to keep that thief from, looking at this as a great opportunity to steal a bike. This thing here probably weighs about 20 pounds, and the locks are very thick and very hard. So they really make this as a lock that, shouldn't be easily defeated. And I basically strung it through both U-locks and onto my truck so that the bikes would be secure. And again, look at the hardness. The hardness ratings, the security ratings on these are in the teens, upper teens. Something like this would probably be like a 1, okay? This doesn't have a lot of security to it. So that's one of the things you can look for. There are other locks that are out there. I've seen some that are ribbon locks. There's steel ribbon that you can take and use to wrap up your bike, and that'd be great for a minor temporary security situation. But quite frankly, anybody that's determined to steal something, if they've got the time, the opportunity, and the visibility or lack thereof, they're still going to be able to do it. What kind of lock makers are there? I already talked about the Abus brand, which I happen to like, because they're a very strong lock. There's Kryptonite. That's probably another brand that you can have seen. These are called On Guard. This is an On Guard lock. This is actually also an On Guard lock. And I mean, they're okay, but they don't have as strong a security as, like, say, a U-lock. There's another lock company that I've been familiar with. It's called Litelok, L-I-T-E-L-O-K. And I saw a video where the guy took, and there was like 2 different models, and of the U-lock that he basically showed how he could defeat it. And with an angle grinder, okay, and a lot of the thieves will use these, the guy showed that it took about 3 blades and 15 minutes to make 1 cut. Okay, so like I said, on a U-lock, they're probably going to have to make 2 cuts. You're talking a half hour. Again, there's the time that it takes a thief is one thing that's going to deter them. Now, the other thing is, what are you locking it to? All right. A lot of times when you go out, you say, oh, I'm going to lock it to this bike rack. Well, those are thin pipes. And when it comes down to it, the thief will just cut the pipe on the bike rack, steal the bike, and then have all the time on the world to take and actually cut the lock off. So that's one of the things that you want to take and be aware of, is where you're locking the bike. When I take one of my bikes out and I go grocery shopping, for example, I have a U-lock that I actually wrap around the bike and a concrete pole. Okay, so there's a metal pole with a little concrete around it. So it's a little bit more secure at least for when I run into the grocery store and come back out. All right, so those are the things. Thieves use the angle grinders, they use the bolt cutters. I mean, those are the big things that, people take and cut the bolts, and or just simple cable cutters. You figure this thing here is just a simple cable cutter, and they'd be able to take the bike out. What other security measures could you take? Well, when there's somebody that's determined, there's not much. But what you could do is register your bike as well. There's 2 free tools that are available for people to take and register their bike. One is called bikeindex.com, and the other is Project 549 Garage. And both offer these free services, and sometimes law enforcement are using them. I know some of the bike shops actually use these as well to check bikes that may come in and somebody's going to try to trade it in or what have you. But basically what it means is that you're going to end up recording your serial number on the system. You're going to take pictures of your bike, pictures of you and your bike, how you've customized your bike. For example, this bike here did not come with red handlebar tape or the red seat. So it's somewhat unique, it's somewhat customized to my style and makes it a little, stand out a little bit, okay? So those are the things. I've used both of those tools. I registered this bike on both of those things. And then if your bike does get stolen, you can actually indicate on there that the bike has been stolen, which puts out a little alert to the network to be on the lookout for it. And you could take and actually work with several groups in the area. I know I've seen on some of the Facebook groups alerts to stolen bikes. Facebook Marketplace, you might see sometimes a bike that is like, oh, you get a bike like this and they're selling it for $500. This bike replacement cost is over $5,000. So, if there's somebody that is aware of bike pricing, they may alert that this is, a possible stolen bike. So, and then you could go out to those particular tools and actually look for yourself whether or not that has been a stolen bike. So those are some of the things that I would recommend doing. In addition, you could take and do something like putting an Apple AirTag on your bike. Or another tracking device, I've used tile stickers and tile different devices to actually track where your bike is. So if somebody steals it, you may be able to track where that bike is actually located. There was a story recently that I read of a gal, and it was out in California, and her bike was stolen, and she had an Apple AirTag hidden on the bike. And she could actually locate the bike. She called law enforcement and said, my bike has been stolen, I know where it is, I can take you to it. Okay, well, they weren't necessarily wanting her to go up to the door of the house where the bike was supposedly located, but she had the law enforcement go up there and query them. And with Apple AirTag or tile stickers, there is an app that you have on your phone, and you can actually make that device make noise when, let's say, law enforcement is close to prove that that is your bike. So those are a couple of things that you might want to look at as well. One of the other things that I've heard of recently is, let's say, motion detectors that you could put on your bike. Like you have a car alarm. Somebody comes up to your car and bumps it or whatever, and could set off the alarm. Well, how many times have you heard that, and how many times do you just ignore it? Well, it's still a deterrent to a degree. And there are all sorts of devices that are out there that you could put on your bike that if somebody's, while you're, let's say, at the coffee shop, you could enable that device, and if somebody wants to take and move your bike, it starts making noise. Obviously, that's going to bring attention right to them, and that's something that they don't want, okay? And I have this particular device. This is actually a cyclic camera, okay? This camera, it fits on the front of my bike, and I usually use it all the time when I'm out riding, but it also has a security device on it. Okay, here's an example of an alarm system. This happens to be my cyclic camera, but it has an alarm feature. And so if I'm stopped somewhere and I want to take a break, I can turn on the alarm. And if somebody tries to move the bike, it goes off, okay? And it goes off on my phone as well as on the camera itself. So there's a light going off and a noise. Let's turn that off. And it starts recording on the camera, so it actually will record video of the bike as it's being moved and maybe some other surroundings. So just a feature. It's kind of a way to deter somebody from taking your bike. Again, let's say nothing is 100% foolproof. Nothing is 100% thief-proof that is really determined. I've had people, I had a neighbor that was moving and they had their garage door open. They weren't there. Somebody walked in and stole one of their bikes and walked off with it. We didn't know what was going on. We thought it was just somebody that was helping them move. So those are the things that you just gotta be aware of what you're doing with the bike. So like I said, when I was out doing a recent trip, I took the bike into the hotel room. You know, it was mandatory. I wasn't going to leave it outside. The best place to, haul your bike a lot of times, even if you're in an apartment or, your home, make sure it's in your garage, make sure it's in your apartment. Obviously, it depends upon the bike that you have. I've seen some people that have these heavy e-bikes that are 60, 70 pounds, and that's going to be really kind of hard to haul into, let's say, an apartment, especially if you have no elevator to your floor. Or even in a hotel. Sometimes there's hotels or motels, budget places that do not have elevators that you could actually use. But lightweight bikes you should be able to take and, remove that opportunity. Keep it secure, keep it locked up. Keep it out of sight. Okay, that's one of the things, the visibility. If you don't have it in visible spaces, it just makes it a lot easier to keep and protect your equipment. So just as a sort of a recap, when you start looking for security for your bike, look for something that's going to be the highest security rating possible. And again, it all depends upon how you're going to be using it. Something like this is heavy. So obviously on certain bikes like, my road bike here, it's not something that I want to carry along, but this lock, this kind of lock here is actually a lot easier to work with. So that's one of the things that I would strongly recommend. And like I said, when I was actually doing some camping and I was trying to, secure the bikes overnight, they were in my pickup truck, they were attached to the truck, and I had this chain between the two locks holding the bikes together, making it much more difficult for anybody to try and, quickly grab the bike and take off with it. Register your bikes with bikeindex.com, Project 529 Garage. That's also a good thing. Look into air tags, look into tile stickers. Those are also very good for you as well. So as just a wrap up, just want to let you know that yes, you can take and secure your bike, but make sure that you prevent a thief having the time, the visibility, and the opportunity to work and take your property. And look for, reputable, you're going to pay up for some of these locks. These things could be, hundreds of dollars. So, but when you're talking about a bike that could be several thousand, what's a couple $100? It's worthwhile. So just want to make sure that you're knowledgeable about what's going on with thieves and how they operate, and also how you can actually secure your bike the best possible way that you can. So until next time, I just want you to pedal on.